Welcome into another Wednesday weekly update edition of Daily Faceoff Live, streaming live on the DFO YouTube, and as always, a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk, and my co-host today is a managing editor and senior writer from Daily Faceoff, Matt Larkin. Mr. Larkin, thank you for finding some time in just a busy summer.
Yeah, it's sort of, it still feels like there are a few unresolved storylines, right? It's not quite the dead season. There are some trade candidates out there. We got the Hockey Canada verdict coming later this week. So there are still some things happening. It still feels like we're in the pocket, not quite the true dead summer.
We are still, as crazy as this sounds, closer to the beginning of the offseason than the end of it, if you view kind of the middle part of September as the true end of the offseason. So, yeah, a couple of things to put a bow on today. We're also going to be joined by Michael Remis from Sports Talk Winnipeg, or Winnipeg Sports Talk, I should say. He'll chat a little Jets with us. The Gabe Vilardi deal from earlier in the week certainly raised some eyebrows, but let's talk a little bit more about some avoiding arbitration situations. That's where we'll kick off today's show. Capo Caco is the latest one. When we did this show last Wednesday, we were talking about Bowen Byram, but the Kraken and Caco agreed to a 3-year, $4.5 million extension. He had 10 goals in 49 games since coming over from the New York Rangers. And what I like for this, Matt, it's an upside bet for the Kraken. And I feel like this has been yet another summer where they aren't taking enough upside bets, going and signing a guy like Ryan Lindgren. So I applaud them for doing this. I just think they should do more of it.
I couldn't agree more. And I have had a hard time understanding what the Kraken have been doing the last couple off seasons. I thought maybe with bringing in Jason Botterill that would change because you're pivoting to a different GM, but they're still doubling, tripling down on mid. Mason Marchment, Frederick Gaudreau, Ryan Lindgren. This is a team that just seems to want to live in that murky middle. And I've said many times, they were hurt by making the playoffs in their second season. It elevated expectations. They couldn't build out their farm system. This is the youngest team in the league in terms of how long it's been a franchise. And you need to have a base of young talent. So that's why I do like this bet on Capo Caco. I think it's a reasonable price. It gets him to his free agency UFA year at 27. So he can bet on himself, but he's still getting a raise. And there's some upside for Capo Caco still in there. He's 24 years old. And I remember when he came up in his draft year, second overall, talking to his coaches in Finland, a couple of his coaches, they felt like he was the best 18-year-old they'd ever seen in Finland. Better than Mikael Granlund, better than Barkov. We know he has potential to be this high-end facilitator, really smart player. And I think he showed with a lot more ice time that he can be a legitimate top 6 forward in the NHL. He had 30 points in 49 games with the Kraken. I think he can continue that production going forward.
Yeah, and one of those guys, too, that because he's played, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons in the NHL, you kind of forget he's still only 24 years old. He's not going to turn 25 until February. Like, there is still time here for him to become an effective NHLer. And if that happens, if that sort of switch gets flipped this season, even next season, then the Kraken are putting themselves in a spot where they can get some value. I also do think it's funny that it's so hard these days to get everyone in the hockey world to agree on something. I think most people in media, fans agree. Like, everyone raises an eyebrow at what the Seattle Kraken are doing. It feels like everyone but that Kraken front office is like, go rebuild, like go tear it down. And they just refuse to do it. The other name I want to throw your way is Nick Robertson. We were joking before the show. Every summer for the last 3 summers, it feels like, it honestly feels like longer than that, we've had to talk about Nick Robertson. And again, his arbitration hearing is coming up. Who knows if they'll find a deal? Who knows if they'll find a trade? This is a guy who's been on every trade board for the last 3 seasons, Matt. His numbers, his boxcars always look fine. What do you make of Nick Robertson in the Leafs? Are we finally going to get a finale to this saga?
Well, the irony is this is the first summer where I think I'm not predicting a trade. And then, of course, a trade's going to happen because of that. But I do wonder if the Leafs actually need him right now because they are crunched against the cap. I assume whatever the number is going to be in arbitration, you can fit him under the cap. They're still about, I think it's 2.8 million, give or take. And right now, just after losing Mitch Marner, you have to find depth scoring for cheap wherever you can get it. And he can give you 15 goals in the bottom 6. That said, I know if you trade Mitch Marner somewhere else to a weaker team that could play him on the second line, he's going to get 20 to 25 goals because he can shoot the puck. Just on a contending team, he doesn't fit in the bottom 6. He's been miscast. I don't think he's a particularly intelligent player. I'm not trying to be rude. I just don't think it's his strength. He has good raw tools, doesn't have the size, doesn't have the hockey sense to play in a checking role, hasn't really been a good hockey fit. So I do wonder, is there a change of scenery type of trade partner out there for the Leafs? I think you got to look at the Columbus Blue Jackets with Igor Chinnikov. I can't take credit for the idea. I've seen it out there, but I think that makes a lot of sense. It would be a good bet for the Leafs on a player with upside, and it gives Robertson a change of scenery, which I think he badly needs. He needs a team that has more confidence in him, that won't keep yanking him in and out of the lineup, and he just never knows where his place is going to be any given day, week, or month.
Yeah, and you talked about the Leafs being tight to the cap. Not quite as tight, though, as they've been in past years. So if there is a deal like having to afford a, what is it, $2.1 million for Chinnikov, you can absolutely make that happen if you're Toronto and you believe enough in the player. Chinnikov, also 24 years old. One of those stories from the last week, asking for a trade out, all of that stuff. There's always the little veiled threat too. And it was in the tweet, I believe, from his agent where it was like, could go to Russia. I could go to Russia if you don't give me what I want. And who knows about that. But let's pivot then and talk a little bit about some trade stuff. A couple of names that have been kind of circulating since, before the draft even. And it's a guy like Jason Robertson and Erik Karlsson, and even Nazem Kadri has had his name pop up a little bit, although there's been some cold water thrown on that one. Is there a trade situation that you're looking at, Matt, and you still believe could happen in the next couple of weeks or month here? Or do you think it'll be pretty quiet?
I still think the Pittsburgh Penguins are the team to watch because they have chips that I think a lot of teams could use. And it's been the narrative this offseason. They're the one team that is truly committed to rebuilding and tanking because, of course, the gods are going to give them Gavin McKenna, as they do every 20 years. Pittsburgh gets that superstar. So I'm looking at Brian Rust. I'm looking at Rickard Rakell. There are a few teams that still need top six forward if you can make the money work. I think Winnipeg does. I think Toronto does. Buffalo is pretty desperate for some kind of veteran help. And Erik Karlsson, to me, is the really intriguing name. He has 2 years left at $10 million, but if you retain half that salary, $5 million a year of Erik Karlsson for 2 years, especially with the cap going up, he's a bargain all of a sudden. And there are teams that could use his veteran savvy, his puck moving ability on the right side. I really like him for the Detroit Red Wings. That would be an ideal fit. They're a team that I think wanted to bid on Aaron Ekblad, didn't even get the chance. Steve Yzerman was talking about, we couldn't do much this offseason because so many guys didn't make it to market. I think they really badly need that right shot defenseman. You could have a mentor for your young Swedes on defense, Simon Edvinsson and Axel Sandin Pellikka as well. It would be a nice fit with Erik Karlsson there, and he just brings something that they need, a bona fide top four defenseman. So I'd be kicking the tires hard on him if I were Detroit, who also has a really deep and loaded prospect pipeline. There's a really nice fit for a trade there. And in terms of the pie in the sky, Tyler, Jason Robertson obviously is the most impactful name out there, but people have to remember, he's still under contract this year. Dallas does not have to rush and make a trade happen if one does not make sense.
Yeah, one more year at 775. Then he's even got one more year of RFA with Arb, right? It's like there isn't the rush that maybe people thought there was earlier in the summer, or that sense of urgency. The big crunch for Dallas, like, again, Jim Nill, because the team is so good, he can just point to, I'm trying to run this back and win a Stanley Cup. But next summer, when it's Harley and it's Robertson, that's when there might have to be some tough decisions. Because you look at some of the big money, like, okay, Mikko Rantanen is there. He's not going anywhere. We know that. Rupe Hintz, 8.4. Wyatt Johnson, 8.4. Like, they've spent on some cornerstone pieces. Tyler Seguin's also buyout proof. Like, that last year at $9.8 million, I think if you were to inject some truth serum into people in that Dallas front office, they're probably crossing their fingers being like, LTIRs, can we get something out of that? Or can we find a way to get out of that Tyler Seguin money? Because that's the only albatross they have. Again, big money deals coming next summer in Dallas, so not the sense of urgency.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think in terms of where the urgency is with the Dallas Stars right now, it's finding help on the right side of that decor. I still think they need that piece. And of course, they've been linked repeatedly to Rasmus Andersson. It would be a great fit. And just talking about Erik Karlsson, that would be a good fit for a team that wants to win now and needs someone they can trust in their top four, who on retained salary would come in at a really reasonable number. That would make sense because you're trying to figure out a way. You don't want to trade away Jason Robertson and lose your first line left winger if it can be helped, because you need him. But also, as we saw in the playoffs, it's really clear that there's a gaping wound on the right side of Dallas's blue line.
Yeah, it really, really hurt them. Like, it's been back-to-back Western Conference Finals where they've been playing Alex Petrovic regular minutes, and no disrespect to Alex Petrovic, but a team that wins the Stanley Cup probably doesn't have him playing 14 to 16 minutes a night. The Karlsson one too, I want to throw a few more there before we move past it. A lot of people always kind of go like, oh, Carolina would be a fit. They have Goss to spare to run one power play. I would imagine that Nikishin's going to have some role on the power play. I do. And this is just me throwing out it because it's a fun story, but like, what about Ottawa if you could find a way to make it work? Isn't that like a nice homecoming and a team that wants to presumably take another step forward? I like that idea.
100%. And thank you for reminding me. I actually wrote it down to mention Ottawa as well, and I forgot to bring it up. I think that is another really good fit. I think that Ottawa, you were playing Nick Jensen up in the lineup with the second pair with Thomas Chabot, but ideally Jensen could be a luxury third pair defenseman. And I mean, you do have Jordan Spence coming in now on the right side, so you have to figure that out. But in terms of just mobility and leadership and just a fun story at a reasonable price on retained money, I think Erik Karlsson coming home would make a lot of sense, especially because, of course, his wife, Melinda Curry, they met in Ottawa. So that would be a homecoming for their family, too. So I totally see it. And especially with Ottawa on the rise, Erik Karlsson wants a chance to chase the Stanley Cup. And it'd be kind of fun if, he hasn't really had a good run at it since he was there in 2017. And maybe this is the fit that he needs.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting. We're going to play the rating game, Matt. I throw a take your way, and you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being, Tyler, that's insane. Why'd you ask me? 10 being, nope, that thing is bang on. It's going to happen. And some news from earlier this week that Porter Martone is going to be going to the NCAA. And you kind of look back at that top 10 from this 2025 draft. And while Matthew Schaefer is certainly saying all the right things, and it sounds like he will be in that Islanders lineup next year, I'm not sure if there's another one. So I'll say Matthew Schaefer will be the only player from the 2025 NHL draft to play the full season in the NHL. Where do you come out on that? 1 through 10?
I'm going to say that's a 3. I don't agree. I think there are a couple names that you can watch, and I think one in particular that has an NHL-ready game, that's Anton Frondel. So we know he's signed his entry-level deal, and he's built like a tank. He's well over 200 pounds already. He's got an NHL body, and his hockey sense, the way he plays, it's a pro-ready style. So I think he could come right in and immediately help the Chicago Blackhawks. I predict that he does make the team out of camp. You have to look at Michael Misa as well. I know there are a little bit of concerns about his back, but it sounds like it's not going to be a long-term problem. And you can make a case that he's already the most talented player on the Sharks roster, including their NHLer, in terms of offensive ability. I'm not talking all around, but pure scoring ability. He might be your best scorer, better than Macklin Celebrini, if you put him right into the lineup as a rookie. And the Sharks don't have much to lose. So I think it's an okay training ground to give Michael Misa a chance. So I predict Misa and Frondel make it. You also have to keep an eye on James Higgins, who was vowing to try his best to make the Boston Bruins as a rookie. He's more of a long shot, but the last I heard was that he's going to give it his best chance, right? So that's someone that has designs on doing it. I'm going to say 3, though. Those top 3, I predict will play full seasons in the NHL.
James Higgins would be so interesting just because the Boston Bruins, everyone knows the Boston Bruins are dying to get some center depth in there, and they're looking for that next piece down the middle. It'd be interesting. You could insulate him a little bit too. If you had a guy like Lindholm kind of taking some of the heavier minutes and you wanted to play Higgins in just more of an offensive role, I'd be real hesitant though. That's one where like maybe after the college season, I could see him coming up, but out of the gates, crazier things have happened. I mean, yes, 7th overall, not a traditional straight jump to the NHL, but like we have to remember there was a point, a calendar year ago where like this was being looked at as almost still the James Higgins draft.
Yeah, a year ago, he was still atop Stephen Ellis's rankings as our number 1 guy. And I think his skill set, I think what's fascinating for the Bruins is they really need that type of dynamic skating ability and puck moving ability that he would bring. So if he shows something in camp, it could be tempting to give him a shot, because really it's like, if you look at what Casey Middlestat brings, I think we know what his ceiling is right now. It's like, I feel like James Higgins could be as good as Casey Middlestat, who's kind of a one-way player in year 1. So I don't know if you want to risk it. I don't know if you want to risk damaging the player on a team like Boston in year 1. I think it's different. San Jose, there are just no expectations. So that's why I say it's fine to trot Misa out there. With Boston, I think they believe they're competitive. I don't think they are, but they want to be. So maybe the stakes would be a bit too high to force the issue with Higgins in year 1.
All right, let's do a little rank 'em here. We're going to talk Winnipeg Jets in a few minutes, but let's do some Canadian team talk, because I do think it's really interesting, Matt, to look at sort of the state of these two teams. And Anthony DeMarco, who's doing a mailbag for us at Daily Faceoff, he got asked a question earlier this week that was like, who improved more, the Leafs or the Oilers? And I was kind of like, is neither of them an option? Like, I think the Oilers, could be the same. I think the Leafs maybe could be the same. But it got me thinking, if you had to right now, before any other offseason moves get made, rank 1 through 7 the Canadian teams as they currently stand. And I'm going to give you some props because I see the ranking you're about to throw my way. I wish I had the balls. I wanted to put Montreal higher. You did it.
Yeah, I am all aboard that hype train. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs are a team that's going to regret not getting further in the playoffs when they had their chance, because I think this is the year, unless the Leafs make one more move for a top six forward, this is the year that they get overtaken in the Atlantic Division. If you look at Montreal, you're getting a full season of Ivan Demidov, who probably is the number 2 prospect in the world after Matthew Schaefer. Lane Hudson, he just had his rookie season. He's still ascending. You traded for Noah Dobson. You have a new defenseman for your top pair. Your bottom 6 is young and physical, young enough, I should say. And Sam Montembeault is a good goaltender, especially as the team around him improves. So the Habs were already a playoff team last year. I think they can keep getting better. So I like them as sort of being the breakout team. I could see them being a 100-point team this year. So yes, that's my hot take. Montreal number 2, second best chance at the Cup right now.
100-point team. That would be very interesting. Bet365 has them at plus 650 to hit the 100-point mark next season, which is like they were at 91 last year. Like, is there a path to like, okay, what's Demidov worth? Is he an extra couple of points here or there? And you talk about, does Lane Hudson somehow have another level? Like, I needed very little convincing to get on this Montreal hype train, but like, yeah, that Zach Bolduc deal. Like, if he ends up just being a 20-goal third-line player for him, like, that changes the whole look of that lineup when you go from Demidov, Bolduc, Dobson, like 3 potential like impact guys.
Absolutely. And I love that trade from Montreal, especially for them, because Logan Mailloux, that was dealing from a position of extreme strength, especially now you have Noah Dobson as well. So you don't need Logan Mailloux. And you bring in someone who is immediately going to make an impact. Bolduc was on my all-rookie ballot. I think he was number 5 on my Calder ballot as well, because his goal total was high teens, but he also was really good defensively. So that's a player that's really good for your middle 6. That's a guy you win with. And just one more addition, like what an offseason for Kent Hughes. Absolute virtuoso offseason.
Yeah, let's go to the bottom. We both agreed Vancouver, dead last, 7 of 7. And I mean, listen, I don't even think it needs that much explaining, but when you look at that center depth, okay, Elias Pettersson, what is he? Even if he takes a big step forward and he is like a bona fide top line center for you, you're still taking a gamble on Philip Hedl finding a way to be healthy. And even when he's been healthy, asking him to be a 2C is a pretty big ask. There's a lot of hope on that Vancouver roster. And like, I'm not saying that, they're guaranteed they're going to miss the playoffs, whatever, but it's pretty easy to put them dead last in this ranking.
I agree. And for me, the Canucks are at the top of my what are you doing power rankings, a team that really struggles to find its identity. They weren't good enough to make the playoffs. And what have you added to this roster? You're pretty much running back the same core group. And you're just, like you said, hoping for a better season from Pettersson, hoping for help from Ketel. And you're bringing back Brock Besser and Thatcher Demko. It was sort of a considered a win that they retained both players. But again, all you're doing is maintaining the core of a team that was not good enough to make the playoffs. What have you added? You're hoping for help maybe from within. Maybe a Jonathan Lekkerimaki makes the team and breaks out. But it's not like you have a can't-miss superstar prospect coming up. I just see kind of the same group. That group wasn't good enough. This team hasn't made the playoffs in consecutive years for more than a decade.
Let's keep talking about one of the teams who is Canadian and made some news this week. Is a double dip, our big segment, Michael Remis from Winnipeg Sports Talk. Appreciate your time today, Michael. Very excited to have you on the show. Let's talk about the Gabe Vilardi piece of news first. A big extension came down last week, $7.5 million for the 25-year-old who they got as part of the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. Was any part of this, from the term to the AAV, surprising for you? Oh, you got you muted. Oh, or do we? Oh, no. Oh, no, I saw the audio lines earlier, too. Here, Pat, let's see if we can maybe just get Michael to reconnect. And Matt Larkin and I will talk a little bit more about that Gabe Vilardi deal. A very interesting case. I mean, $7.5 million, that's a lot of money. But he's 25 years old, and he's banked like a couple of solid 25-plus goal pace seasons.
Yeah, I actually like the deal. And I feel like this is my constant refrain this offseason, and I'm sorry if it's getting tired, but we have to understand that it's time to sort of reevaluate what all these numbers mean, because the cap is going up so much. So $7.5 million is not that much in a couple of years when the cap's 113.5 for someone who's become a pretty reliable 25-plus goal scorer. And Vilardi's been a pretty cool story. Someone who in his draft year, there were concerns about his skating. Then in his early days with the Kings, it was, okay, is his back going to hold up? Is this going to be someone whose career is shortened by back troubles? And he sort of found his way. Still, he has to kind of prove he can be durable year after year, but he's definitely established himself as a frontline NHLer, power play threat as well, and just, I think, a really smart player, a brainy goal scorer. So I actually like this deal.
All right, we got Michael back. He's ready to go. So I'll float you the question. Anything surprise you from the 6 years to the $7.5 million AAV?
Yeah, you got me now. The surprising part, I think, was the years. Maybe not a total surprise. You just weren't really sure what it was gonna be. Would it be 4? Would you want to take a short-term deal? 6, really nice number for the player and the team. For Velarde, he's a player. He hasn't played a full season. Never played 82 games. He was on his way last year to a career year, and he did have a career high in points, 61 in 71 games. But the knock on him in LA was, he couldn't stay healthy, and he had an injury in 23-24 off the bat last year. Again, injured, and I think that injury carried over into the playoffs where he was not 100%. So for him, getting 6 years, you do have that security. 7.5, I think that was in the ballpark. I know Daily Faceoff is a big fan of AFP analytics. They had about 6.7 for 4 years. So this is a really nice number. I think it will age well, as Matt says, with the cap going up. And if he can stay healthy, there can certainly be a value contract. 27 goals last year, could touch 30. We'll see how this power play looks without Nikolai Ehlers, but a lot of opportunity for him to outplay this contract playing on the top line along Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor.
Michael, good to see you, buddy. I'm glad you mentioned Ehlers because that sort of ties to a question I wanted to ask you. I'm looking at this depth chart for a team that was the President's Trophy winner, and I see a big gap without Ehlers. And I see a team that still has theoretically the cap space to replace him. So do you anticipate that Kevin Cheveldayoff is going to make another move for a top 6 forward, or have we reached kind of, okay, what we see is what we get with this group?
Yeah, I think the Winnipeg Jets are going to look. Their roster is going to take a step back here without Nikolai Ehlers. Huge secondary scoring. You saw that speed, his ability to enter the zone, and finally this year they moved him to power play 1, and their power play was the number 1 power play in the NHL. They've signed Jonathan Toews as second line center. I think there's a lot of unknown there in terms of what he can bring after his layoff. And Gus Nyquist had a down year last year, career year 2 years ago. Can he be somewhere in the middle and provide some secondary scoring? But the thing is, with either of those players, not exactly the fastest in the league. So the Jets are going to lose some speed without Ehlers, and we'll see how they rebound. As far as adding more players, I think this is going to be it for now. From what we've heard, not really looking to add. They do have a lot of cap space, so maybe something could come up. They do have a number of defensemen locked up, which is interesting. I think they got 9 under NHL contracts. That's after they signed Dylan Sandberg, who's got an arbitration date for next year. So I think this is going to be it. You'd like to see them add. They do have the cap space. Some of that is to cover for Jonathan Toews bonuses for games played. There's a lot of those. But yeah, they have 10 million cap space right now, but they have to sign Sandberg. That's going to come in, maybe 6 mil or just over. So they would have 4. So I think this is going to be it. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe there's something else, but I'm not anticipating any major moves.
I see. And if you look at that depth chart, so not only do you feel the void of Nick Ehlers, there's also the temporary void of Adam Lowry, your captain, who is recovering from the hip surgery. And my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but he's not going to be ready for the start of the year. Pretty unlikely. So if you look at what you have up the middle, you have Jonathan Toews and you have Vlad Namestnikov. So that's your combo. We'll see which one's the true number 2, which one's the number 3. But how confident are you that that's going to be effective and good enough to hold the fort while Lowry is gone?
Yeah, and you look at that depth chart as well. Rasmus Kupari, he's gone off to Europe, so he's not around either. I think Morgan Barron will slot into that 4th line spot. I think they're looking for him to take a step forward. He was elevated to center, and really, we saw his speed on NHL Edge stats. One of the fastest players, on the team, and I think in the league, he was at one of the highest recorded speeds. But I think there's just a lot of unknown with Jonathan Toews, and if they're counting on him to be a second line center, especially with Adam Lowry out, I think that's a big ask. Namestnikov was second line center for majority of last year. and I think he was solid. Adam Lowry, he's having hip surgery, not expected to be back, I think, December, January. And, who knows if he's going to be 100% right away and how long it's going to take him to get up to speed. So I think there's certainly some concerns with the speed of that second line, the way that is listed. If it is Perfetti, Taves, Nyquist, not the fast guys, will a guy like Morgan Barron, will he step up? Or will a prospect like Brad Lambert, who was 30th overall a couple years ago, known for his speed, had a down year in the AHL last year, but the Manitoba Moose's roster, I mean, they were a last place team. So, it was, how much of that is him? How much of that is the guys around him? I think they're going to have an exceptional training camp to bump into the roster. So we'll see, but definitely some concerns. I think as long as they have Connor Hellebuck in net, they should be able to compete for a playoff spot. But the power play really took a step back without Ehlers when he was injured. And again, with him not on the second line, I think they will take a step back. How could they not be a worse team without him? But I think they'll still be pretty good. And I did agree with Tyler's rankings, where he had the Jets as number 2. Sorry, Matt, you had the Jets at 4 behind Montreal and Toronto.
I mean, I do think, like, I'm looking right now at their over-under for next season, because we're going to talk betting in the last couple minutes of our show. The line is set at 97.5. Like, the Jets will take a step back, but a 19-point step back, like, that feels a little extreme, doesn't it, Michael?
Oh, yeah. Oh, jeez.
Well, last year was a career year. I mean, it was a record-setting season for franchise record for points. So I do think expecting that again would be tough. And Connor Hellebuck, again, a great year. Will he be able to replicate that? I think he should. One thing I do wonder is if he was ever to be injured, how much would that affect the Jets? We can knock on wood. I shouldn't even be talking about this, but he's actually never missed time due to injury. And look, he's getting up there in age. Goalies it does happen where they do miss time. We see it around the league. And I think that would hurt the Jets significantly. He was the league MVP, and that's why. But I haven't, dove into a lot of the projections out there. That does seem like a high step back. If you think Montreal can get 100, like Matt does, surely the Jets should be able to. But I think one thing we haven't discussed, this division is getting very, very tough. Dallas, always solid. Utah, now that they moved there, adding players, spending money. I think Nashville, they're down. Yeah, Chicago, they're down. But I think St. Louis, strong. Minnesota, strong. The 6 there, they're going to battle it out. And maybe Nashville does take a step forward. I don't think so. But this division, very, very tough. We're only, I guess 4 to 6 teams can make it. We'll see how the Pacific is. But the division getting stronger, I think, will be a factor as well.
Michael, appreciate your time. Thanks for popping on.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
You can find him at Winnipeg Sports Talk, by the way. Tagged him in the pre-show tweet as well. All right, let's get to our daily Faceoff inbox question. Hashtag Ask DFO. Let me throw you one about the Central, Matt. Who would you say is the favorite right now?
I think it's the Dallas Stars. I actually think the Dallas Stars are in a tier of their own in that division because of the fact that the Jets are taking a step back. And I think people are sleeping on the fact that Colorado is trending in the wrong direction. Their point total has gone down a couple years in a row, and their depth is getting shallower and shallower because they're getting more and more top heavies. They have to pay their stars more and more money, and their prospect pool is barren. There's no help coming. They traded Cal Ritchie. There's no internal help, and I think the Avs are a team in decline. So because of that, I think this is the year that Dallas really separates and maybe wins the division by 5 or 10 points. I think Minnesota has potential, especially because, as you'll see tomorrow on Daily Faceoff, Stephen Ellis is going to talk about it. Some of their prospects, some of their top prospects could graduate to the NHL this year. The Blues, I think, they're a sneaky regression candidate because they got pretty lucky in terms of shooting percentage during that winning streak last year. But overall, they're a team on the rise. I think it's fair to call them that. But yeah, I'd say Dallas head and shoulders above the rest right now.
betting markets actually have Colorado at the number 1 spot, which brings us to our daily bets brought to you by Bet365. Download the app today. I'm also giving that a thumbs down. Whatever your bet, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. With the Jets being a big topic today, they were one of the 3 teams last year who hit the 110 point mark, and Bet365 has some odds up for who could be the teams to do it next season. My favorite one, actually, they did it last year, and I don't think their roster is noticeably worse at all. I kind of like Vegas at plus 290. I mean, sure, you could point to Alex Pietrangelo being gone, but he was hurt for a big chunk of last season. You add Mitch Marner, you lost some depth pieces, but like the Nick Hague deal, I actually don't hate that at all. You get a guy in Jeremy Lauzon who I think can kind of just be what Nick Hague was for you. It's not a major step back, is my point. Getting Vegas at plus 290 is a good spot. I'm not sure. I think Dallas at plus 360 is good value as well, to your point.
Yeah, I agree. And with Vegas, it's like, you're getting a 102-point scorer who was on the team that has the longest active playoff streak in the league. Mitch Marner, say what you want about his playoff exploits, but he fuels really dominant regular season teams because he scores, he distributes the puck as well as anybody. He's the best takeaway artist of any forward in the league. He's a good two-way player, so he's going to turn that team into even more of a winner. I totally agree. I'm also looking at the Carolina Hurricanes. I like the value there because you add Keandre Miller, you add Nikolai Ehlers to a team that was already quite good. Logan Stankoven's going to get better. Seth Jarvis is going to get better. Alexander Nikishin probably breaks through as a full-time NHLer. So Carolina, team on the rise. I think they're a shoo-in for 100 points.
Yeah,
110. 110. Was that the bet? 110?
Yeah,
I like him for 110
point mark.
Boom.
That Montreal 100 point mark at plus 650. That's almost too juicy for me to pass up. I think there's going to be points on the board in that division. So I like that Montreal bet as well. Let's wrap up the show with a little bit of garbage time. I keep forgetting that this is an Olympic year coming up for the NHL. And I thought this was neat to see the partnership between Liga Serie A and the NHL. They're going to do like a cross-sport collaboration with some of the players from the Footy League and NHL players. I applaud the NHL whenever they try something new here. I mean, last year, Four Nations Faceoff, that had its detractors. It ended up being a smash. I'm not saying this is going to be anything close to that, but I just like that the league is, in the last couple of years, shown a willingness to push things a little bit and not do things in just the traditional way. So a partnership like this to build some hype around the Olympics in Italy, I think it's really smart.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, you're going to focus it on the Euro side because the Olympics are going to be in Italy. But even independent of that, I think it's wise as opposed to if you were trying something with the NFL or Major League Baseball where the Venn diagrams of the fans aren't always going to line up. Whereas there is a connection between a lot of the top hockey nations in Europe and I think fanaticism about football, soccer as well, right? Especially if you look at the NHL player population, what are they doing before every game? They're playing sewer ball. And there are a lot of European NHL players who are diehard football fans. Victor Hedman and Andre Palat, they bought a team and they actually managed it, or didn't manage it, but the team that they bought got promoted to the second highest level below the EPL. So there's a lot of passion for football among the European player population. So why not celebrate it during that European media tour?
I love the sewer ball point because that's exactly what I was going to say. There are going to be some players when the media tour rolls through and they do this and we see them on the pitch. There's going to be some guys who are actually probably really good. There might even be some guys who like surprise themselves with how good they are. But anyways, cool announcement from the NHL. And look at that. Even in the middle of July, we found a way to go well over our time for the show today. Big shout out to Michael Remis. Big shout out to you, Matt Larkin. How many Jays games have you made it out to this summer?
I've been to a couple so far. And in both cases, it was the tickets bought a while back and whatever. It's going to be amusing not knowing that they were going to go on this crazy run. So those tickets appreciated in value and all of a sudden meaningful baseball games to go to. Pretty fun.
It's the absolute best. I believe they're dogs tonight on Bet365 as well against the Yankees. But I'll stop talking baseball for everybody in the YouTube. Thank you so much, Pat Puff. Great work as always. We'll chat with you all again next Wednesday for another update edition of the show. Enjoy your week.